They laugh at us all over the world. They're laughing at us. And you know what they're really laughing at? Kamala, because they can't believe that she's going to be president. They can't believe. You talk about cognitive problems? She's got bigger cognitive problems than he has, in my opinion.
Come on, that's hilarious.
Do you think she needs to be presenting more meat on the bones of, I get that she's from a middle-class family. It's great. And I get that she feels people's pains. Great. But what about, like, here are the 5 things I'm going to do directly for you? Does she need to be doing more of that?
Well, she'll be doing some of that tomorrow once she'll put forth her economic plan. But people like to have a connection to whoever is running for office, that they share their experience, that they understand their lives. And I think that's what she is establishing. The wisdom that they have, the political astuteness that they have to become the presidential candidate says they know something about the market out there.
What astute political maneuvering did Kamala Harris do to actually become the presidential nominee? She had to drop out super early when she actually ran for president because no one liked her ideas. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden decided to pick her as vice president. She didn't win anyone's vote during this election cycle. And also, when you say she's about to put out her economic plan, this reminds me when I was in college and I had an econ exam I didn't study for, and then the night before, I'm just going to cram all the knowledge into my head and just hope for the best. And also, I don't really care about Kamala Harris's story, to be honest with you. She should talk about how she's going to make our lives better, but we're not going to actually focus on that. We're going to focus on that she worked at McDonald's. Defenders of democracy when you just anointed your candidate and she didn't have to work for it at all.
I do think that one issue in terms of the cost of living, people want to hear something very specific. She is saying that in that ad, but also tomorrow in her economic plan. I have no complaint about how she is going forward.
No complaint in the way she's going forward. Also, let's keep in mind, during this whole election cycle before Joe Biden blue screened the whole party, they were saying how great the economy was and why are Americans complaining? So what if you can't afford groceries? So what that gas prices have doubled since Donald Trump left office? Don't you love these gig economy jobs that suck? I'm convinced at this point that the Democratic voters just hate Donald Trump. There's no one enthused by this. Say what you want about Donald Trump, at least his supporters actually support him. Versus Kamala Harris, who was just shoehorned in there and is still in shell shock. She's like, wow, I might actually be president.
Complaint, but do you think that she needs to be mixing it up more, having a press conference, more town halls, just out and about more? Oprah's the queen, obviously, but that's not a tough interview sitting down with Oprah. Oprah's endorsed her. She spoke at the convention. Does she need to be doing more of that sort of thing?
She will make that decision in her campaign agenda and her plan.
Terrible answer. You can't even bring yourself to say, yeah, I think she should do a town hall. Yeah, I think she should have more adversarial interviews. Again, Joe Biden basement strategy. Don't actually go out there and try to answer real questions and be challenged. And if you're going to let her get away with this, the bar just continues to get lower and lower and lower. Well, at least Joe Biden had an excuse. It was COVID and he's old. What's Kamala Harris's excuse? She's afraid to do media.
But make no mistake, I know her well, as you know. She is a person of, I know her personally, and she's a person of goodness, of deep faith, and that's why she cares so much about people and their well-being.
Anytime I hear a politician saying that I know someone is just inherently good, just remember the presidents had to make some really fucked up calls in their presidency. Like making calls that people need to be assassinated. So don't sell us that our leaders are inherently good. They're not. They're flawed human beings like the rest of us.
It's neck and neck. It is. I've never seen an election this tight at this point. Usually somebody has an edge at this point that could change, but it's neck and neck. In the battlegrounds, it's neck and neck. So I do wonder, it seems like she's running kind of cautiously. And I wonder, does she need to take more risks?
Well, I would say that since you said, she has my vote. I wasn't speaking about myself. That's one vote. I'm talking about, I was in 3 states last week, not counting California and Washington, where I began then. And the enthusiasm out there is great for her. Mm-hmm. But again, it takes us to a point and we have to get those other votes. So no one is taking anything for granted.
The media made such a big deal out of Joe Biden's alleged cognitive problems. Why don't they talk about Donald Trump's cognitive problems? Well, Donald Trump talked about that just a second ago, and I want to get your reaction. Let's run that clip.
They laugh at us all over the world. They're laughing at us. And you know what they're really laughing at? Kamala, because they can't believe that she's going to be president. They can't believe. You talk about cognitive problems? She's got bigger cognitive problems than he has, in my opinion.
Come on, that's hilarious. I think he's just saying things to get the headlines back. I don't think he actually believes that's true. But hey, that's Donald Trump.
I'm saying that Kamala Harris has bigger cognitive problems than Joe Biden.
Why would you even cover that? This is a person who's not on the level. The only thing he did as president when he had the majority was to pass a bill. They gave 83 tax cut. They gave 83 of the benefits to the top 1%.
Conveniently doesn't talk about the First Step Act, which was an actual attempt to try to get nonviolent criminals out of our jails. Trump's not a peacenik, but he didn't start any new active wars. Pardon Alice Johnson. And imagine that flying back in her face when she says, Trump's not on the level. Imagine if he gets elected. You still gonna think he's not on the level, Nancy?
And what did he do with COVID? Denial and delay. responsible for thousands and thousands of people dying. So if you're going to forgive his job record because of COVID, make sure you attribute many of those deaths to him.
I don't blame Trump for the poor outcomes of the pandemic. Did he respond poorly? Yes. But I got news for you. The United States was not going to do well during the pandemic because Americans have a lot of comorbidities, such as diabetes and heart disease. And those are the people who mainly died from COVID.
Let me just say, why do I run that clip? I run that clip because that's the Republican presidential nominee, and I thought you might have a reaction to it. I'm about to run another clip, and this one is the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, and today he was asked whether he'd follow the regular order when it comes to the election certification process if Kamala Harris beats Donald Trump in November. We don't actually have the clip. I'm just going to tell you what he said. He said, quote, if we have a free, fair, and safe election, we're going to follow the Constitution. What do you think of that, the caveat?
Why should there be a caveat? Why don't we just all agree? Why don't we just all agree? Whoever wins, we are for the peaceful transfer of power.
Do I think Mike Johnson will actually certify the election? Yes. I think he's just saying that to appease Donald Trump. Again, worst thing Donald Trump did is not accept his loss during the 2020 election. So if Mike Johnson actually wants to remain Speaker of the House, he's got to appease him, unfortunately. It'll be interesting if Donald Trump wins to see the meltdown that goes on in Congress. But I don't know, Democrats will probably just claim that it wasn't legitimate and somehow Russia interfered. But we'll see what happens. Maybe Kamala Harris will just deflect responsibility like Hillary Clinton did.
Proof through the night that our flag is still there. You've heard me say that again and again. And this is our night. We have to prove through the night that our flag is still there. I'll give you another Baltimore phrase. It comes from horse racing. We're here, we're going to whip to the lead, and then we're going to whip the lead to victory, and we do not agonize, we organize.
You organize. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat from San Francisco. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Again, nice platitudes at the end. Maybe you're taking your notes from Kamala Harris.